themes of this workshop is based on. Professor Lena Gupta has been associated with the Design Village even before most of us were here. She's been here with us for almost 8.5 years and has worked on the pedagogy and curriculum exclusively. Has been responsible for bringing each one of you here on the screen today to ensure that the like-minded people join the village and grow the community of villagers. She is an architect by profession, but has adapted microclimate design as her prowess and expertise, is the chief examiner for all of you to come through, and is the associate dean for international practice in habitat design, which is an MDes executive program at the Design Village. So the pleasure has been great to have known ma'am and have worked alongside her for last 4.5 years. Ma'am, without taking far more time from you, it's all over to you. And I wish you all a very great session. I really want you all to ask as many questions as possible because it will only be possible when you all interact with her all the time. So good luck and have a great session. Ma'am, thank you for joining us in today.
Well, thank you so much, Vatsal. It's a pleasure to hear about yourself from a very dear colleague. And yeah, I
Thank
think
you, ma'am.
many of you have met me in the interviews, I guess, and that familiar round face pretty much fills up the screen. So today I decided I'm going to have to sit a little behind. I'm very happy and very privileged to meet all of you again. And surprisingly, a lot of what Vatsal said were also my opening lines. What we share with you, whether it was in the exam or in the interview or in the orientation, is pretty much like a peep into the world at TDV, how we teach, why we teach, what we teach, etc. And also what we envisage for you when you graduate and enter the industry and a life through design. And of course, for me personally, what I've put together is like sharing my life, some very personal and very intimate moments of my life, which are to do with celebrating very small things for no apparent reason, but just because it just brings a lot of value to my life, and I hope in some way it touches your heart. Uh, this year I thought I would start with where I am and then go back chronologically to where it all started rather than go from the beginning and then end up in where I am, because I think what is more important for you to look at from the perspective of the design village and your journey there is what is happening in the present. So what I will do is I will share the screen and we will take it from there. Okay. Okay, so I've been calling this series as Tree and Me. And before we actually even before I begin a conversation, I'm going to put you through something which breaks a stereotype of TDV as a very philosophical and a very serious design school. We have a lot of fun, and so I'm going to do something very tacky. And when we think tacky, what do we think? We think Bollywood. So I'm going to share a few images and I'll ask a few questions just as an icebreaker. And so please just switch on your mic and answer. No need to raise your hands or anything. Okay. This is just a couple of questions and just for the fun of it. So I hope you enjoy the few slides. So everybody knows that this is a clipping from the very popular and very interesting movie called Lagan. And it's not about the characters in the story, but I want to know if any of you are able to identify the tree in the background, the poor tree that is encircling the protagonists and the co-actors. Could somebody tell me what that tree is? You can see it in the background. It's like an arc of a circle. Anyone who knows what tree it is? No idea. Yeah, I mean, I guess because, frankly, it's not a very common tree, but it's also becoming very common, particularly in the city of Delhi, It's called the kikar or the babul or the acacia. And it's a desert tree because this film was shot in a semi-arid kind of a region where water is a scarcity. I mean, that's the whole the plot of the story revolves around the scarcity of water. And those of you who live in Delhi would know that this is very, very rampantly found in South Delhi now, towards when you go towards Gurgaon in areas called Vasant Kunj and the JNU campus and all. And it's a very scary thought because it means that the desert has virtually entered our capital. And that was not the case a couple of decades back. And this tree is not a very good inkling for the fact that it brings the desert along with it. Okay. I have drawn a circle around a tree in the corner. Can somebody identify this tree? It's a very common tree now. Anyone who is able to identify the tree?
Ma'am, Ashoka.
Ashoka tree, of course. It's a tree of avenues, and it's in this slide, not so visible, but sometime later I'll show you how it is used to create almost a wall like a scenario. What are these flowers? This garden from a very, very famous love story called Silsila.
Tulips.
Anybody?
Tulip.
Yes,
Tulips.
very, very
Tulips.
famous tulip garden, which made Holland very popular thanks to Chopra and company. Yes. What about this?
Tulsi.
Tulsi or
Tulsi.
basil. And there actually is a movie called Main Tulsi Tere Angan Ki. So that's a very old movie. It was probably when I was a kid, and you wouldn't know the movie. But yes, this is very much the Tulsi, or what we call as the basil. So to begin now, this is where I am parked, and what I'm going to show you is a worldview that is shaped by my very, very what do you say, intimate connection with the plant kingdom or the world of flora. And this is a picture I took when I was in Singapore, right next to the airport. There is a huge kind of a natural forest they've created inside a glass dome. And I saw this gigantic leaf with holes in it. And then when I went close to the holes and I looked, I could see such a big part of the environment around. And I was just thinking that if only we framed our worldview through these plants, we would probably have not found ourselves in such a pathetic situation in terms of climate change and other problems that are challenging the environment today. So just a little bit about me. I'm 52 years old. I have 29 years of practice as what I now define as a micro environment or a microclimate designer. I have 48 years of consciousness with this idea of the tree and me. So if you do the math, it's like from when I was 4 years old, I guess I began to really, really interact with them. And it helped, I think, that my parents were horticulturists. My father is a PhD in chemistry, and my mother is a zoologist and a botanist. So from a very young age, my brother and me were very much introduced to the plant kingdom and also the animal kingdom, by the way. And of course, I have 16 years of experience of being a facilitator in various architecture schools and at TDV as well. So to begin with, I'll show a couple of slides of some of my projects. This was my very first project way back in 1999. I got married and came to Delhi in 96. And it was a set of houses, twin houses, with a garden between for a family from Rajasthan. And the house was very contemporary Rajasthani and very geometric. So when I got the landscape project, I said, hey, there are too many straight lines. We need to give some curvature to this entire environment. It almost tells you, sit like this, stand like this, and so on. Okay, the house needs to be like that, but the garden doesn't need to be like that. And so I started working entirely with curves. Everything that we made was completely, non-linear. And it is one of my favorite projects even today. And it came on NDTV and all of Bloomberg, I don't know, some TV and all that, and in the real estate segment. So it is, so in many ways, it is my favorite subject, favorite project. In the corner, top corner, that little projection is the one that you see the image in the bottom right corner. And there is a little driveway on the top, a kind of a walkway, and there are these series of arches. So basically, you can walk all around the property, and there is a huge lawn in between. And the entire house is now so green. These pictures were taken just after it got completed in maybe 2001 or so. But now, in the last 20 years, there is a vegetable garden. They grew a lot of fruits. They have a compost pit. They have a water harvesting. They have a kitchen waste recycling unit and everything. And it's a very, 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 what do you say, micro environment friendly house. And these are some of the pictures from the central courtyard or the lawn. And this is the entry looking towards the main gate, the driveway that looks to the main gate. So you can see that, all of it is very, very curved. We also very consciously tried to create balconies and balconies within balconies that allowed for people to frame a view of the outside. And it's a very nice place to be in, where you're on the inside balcony or you're on the outside balcony. It's a very unusual way to design a balcony, but the views that we had of the forested area in the neighborhood of civil lines is stunning. They're stunning views. This is a very low budget school that we had done again in early part of 2000. And what was important in this project is that it established me as a very credible practitioner of what we call as rainwater and wastewater management. And we had done the landscape for this project. It's in Nagar, and it has won many prizes for its landscaping. All the water that falls on the driveway, the paved area, is converted into a well water, and then transported to the lawns for watering the incredible number of trees and shrubs, and also the huge grass cover in the school. And they do not have to buy water, or they do not have to spend on water. And this used to be a waterlogged area. So they had come to us telling us, please try to, make sure that our kids don't find themselves having to wade across water. And now what they have got is, not only do they are they freed from the waterlogging, but they use all that water very purposefully for gardening the plants. And it's we're very, very welcome there, and we're very respected there. And it's very nice to have done this kind of work very early on in my life. So a lot of this work that we do is to do with turning the bath and the kitchen wastewater into recyclable water for cisterns. So it is used to flush your WCs, which do not need pure water from the municipal system. And this way, we've been able to save 45% of water. And in a city like Chennai and many arid parts of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, where I've worked with my father extensively, we've really, really reduced the consumption of good water so that it becomes available to others. Otherwise, what happens in a system is those who can afford it, they buy it. And then it's okay if they waste it or not, or use it, misuse it, because they have paid for it. But the moment you take care of your own needs, because you have the means to do it, you allow these resources to be used by others who cannot afford. So I think that was a very satisfying part of the project. This, I have a non what disclosure agreement, so I can't show you live pictures, but two very interesting projects which we did in very tough circumstances. Orient Syntex is an industry in Bhiwadi, where they make yarn. So they use a lot of RO water to clean the yarn, and every day, tons and tons and tons of water gets released into the soil, and the soil had become very toxic. And there are 400-500 people living there in the industry, and they were coolly drinking water. They were falling sick. So we were asked to look at, my father and I and my husband, we were asked to look at how do we remove detoxify the soil. And when we went there, we found that, it was all marshy land, and there was no life for those 500 people, where there were elderly people, there were the workers, there were the officers, and there were lots and lots of children. So we designed 9 parks for them, and this was a park for the old people to elderly people to just take a walk along the periphery and then gently come down, and there is a sitting area for them. There's a fountain there, and again, all of this, the water gets circulated and thrown back into the soil, but after rejuvenating it through the plant mechanism. So these are all places where, technology, design, art, the plant kingdom, the man-made kingdom, everything, everybody kind of comes together and collaborates to create a meaningful space. On the top is a very big institution in Ghaziabad called Sanskrit Bharati, again in Lal Dora land, which is agricultural land. So we tried our best to make sure that we did not hamper the water situation of that area by creating a lot of paved spaces, because people can't walk on soil, especially in the rainy season. So all of the water that falls on the paved area is put back into the ground. This is my house, and it is so full of plants. It takes me about 45 minutes to just water the plants that are indoors. The terrace garden is another game altogether. It requires dedicated parenting, and wherever I see, I have plants of all kinds. And on Saturdays or Sundays, I bring all of them to the wash basin in the sink in the kitchen, and I give them what I call as a weekly bath. And I mean, if people are visiting at that time, they find it so amazing. Oh, this is your plant bath time. Oh, now, okay. Am I disturbing you at your plant bath time? So they won't come and visit me at 10 in the morning on Sundays, because they know that's what I'm going to be doing. But I love the space that I've created for ourselves as a family, and for me as an individual. This is my husband sometime in the COVID, I think. And that was the time we were not traveling or at work. So we were doing whatever work we were doing from home, and we had a lot of extra time on our hands. So we started growing our own green vegetables. It was just around, I think, about the end of the spring. I mean, it was sometime in March or April, or probably the following winter. I don't remember, but we started growing these greens. And I believe that when we do all of these things, we are just not doing it for others, we are doing it for ourselves. And it was extremely therapeutic. It almost helped us to tide over the very difficult times in COVID. And he is not a person who was so interested in gardening or anything to do with soil. But now he's the one who does all of the sowing of all the vegetables that we grow, whether it is summer vegetables or winter vegetables. And there's a little plant on the floor that I've marked an arrow. This was gifted to me by my colleague at GDV, Latika. You must have met her. And then I used it to propagate many more. So right behind Manoj, there is another one of those. And I just, created many more babies, and I then kept giving them to other people. And it was very exciting for me to connect people through plants which were not even bought by me, they were gifted. But I had fun. So Manoj and I are hands-on plant parents. So you can see him sitting on the terrace garden, very smugly looking at his little ones, I call them. And the look on his face, even when he shows guests around, is very proud. It's that kind of expression that a parent has when the parent says, my daughter got 99.78% in the board exam, so proudly announcing ki ye mere bacche hain. And I that's why I took a picture of him showing off to somebody at lunch. In winters we often have lunch on the terrace, and we are hands-on parents. We meet our kids as parents first thing in the morning. He is a daily parent. He spends a lot of time on the terrace early morning. There are a lot of birds that come. They almost know that he's going to be there. There are two peacocks who have been visiting us for the last 2-3 years now. And then if I happen to be there watering the garden in case he's not able to, he's traveling, they will look at me from the parapet and then go away. They don't even want to say hello to me. But when he's on the terrace, they are, walking around. He's doing the laundry. He's watering the garden. He's drying the clothes. Whatever he's doing, they're just, roaming around. And I have beautiful videos of them. But when I asked him, he said, "Did you ask the peacocks for permission? I don't think they like their privacy to be invaded. Can you please leave them alone?" So I said, "Okay, but I'm just going to talk about it." I'm a weekend quality time parent because I leave early in the morning and come back late at night. So I really spend Saturday evenings or Sunday mornings weeding and cutting and trimming. And every evening nowadays, because it is summer, the first thing I do when I go back is what I call as hydration. I just give them a kind of a wash so that they don't feel hot. I cool them down, and somewhere I think I'm cooling my own self as well. And we never force feed them. I'll tell you what this force feeding is all about. It's a term we learned from somebody who I call as a soil magician. I'll talk about him a little later. And we do not take shortcuts with, like we never did it with our son as parents. Recently, we've been also cultivating this idea of microgreens. And Mahima, one of our graduating students, she's going to be graduating in a couple of weeks, I guess. She was doing her design project, which she will talk to you about. And she gave me this idea that, alternate crop, why don't you have them as microgreens? So we did a lot of research together, and we found that when a plant sprouts the first two new leaves, if you eat them, they are extremely, extremely nutritious. Way more nutritious when they grow to a much bigger size, because by then, you see, the plant has already distributed its resources across the length and breadth of itself. Whereas at this level, it is just in the two leaves. And so it is very, very high in nutrition. And I feel that, immunity is such a big thing in today's times. It's time for us to tell the virus, "Hey, I know you're there, but please don't come and bug me, go bug somebody else." And it is that person's problem to tell the same thing to the virus, "Go bug somebody else." If all of us have great immunity, the virus can't do anything to us. And I think we pretty much mentally and physically survive because of immunity right now. And this is something that I'm very grateful to Mahima for teaching me. This is a picture I took to send as New Year greetings, because it was all about the Christmas colors. I have a poinsettia. I have a lot of, you associate with Santa Claus and things that are red. But then just a few months later, I sent the same few plants with many more colors as best wishes for Holi, because by then, the color palette had changed. So to me, colors very important. I like wearing bright colors. I like having a lot of colors in my life. And but what I've also understood is that on some days when I go to my garden, I see the contrast. I see this amazing, pink or an orange or a yellow that contrasts with the green. But then on some days, I sense shades of the same color: light yellow, slightly green, light green, dark green, pista green, this green, that green. And it's a very, very acute moment for me to realize that, hey, why did I not notice this before? And I feel that, you need to also look at people with the same set of lenses. Every day you meet people, you should try and look for newer things in them, new qualities, some new aspect, and you keep nurturing the relationship, and you have these eureka moments of discovery, and that keeps the relationship so fresh. Just like when I go to my garden, I never get bored. And I have a habit also of collecting some of these flowers every day in the morning, making a kind of a mala and adorning my idol, Ganesha's idol. And I often, when I pray, I tell Ganesha, "Hey, look, I made you look so beautiful." And to me, that is, and we have this really nice short conversation before I leave for work. And again, when I go back home, the first thing first entity I meet is Lord Ganesha, and I see those flowers, and then I go to the terrace. So, I mean, it's just part of my daily routine, and it's just so. I mean, it just gives me joy for no reason. This is the terrace garden right now, and from very early on in life, I realized that society is very pluralistic. So for me, it's my garden is not a manicured garden. It's like almost like a jungle, the way naturally plants would grow. And I have just a sixth sense for, what requires more sunlight, what could do with less, what looks good with what. And generally, I just kind of arrange them, but otherwise, they're all scattered and they all grow as a beautiful forest together. And makes me feel that this is how I should look at society. It's multidimensional, it's extremely pluralistic, it's very complex, and it is the dynamism that keeps us going and keeps us in engagement with one another. Then I just put together a few lessons that I've learned by making metaphors when I am walking the terrace or watering my plants. So this is a very cute cactus that I have, a succulent, and it gets visited by this kind of a weed. Actually, it has beautiful purple flowers. It just comes in the month of April and May. It's right now there, and then it just goes away and then it comes again. So I never remove it because I know that it never outstays its welcome. It does not destroy my cactus. It just cohabits for that little time and it looks so pretty. I've never had the heart to weed it out. But actually, there are many people who told me, no, 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 you should remove it. It's not good for the plant. I said, my cactus will tell me if it's not good for it. It will give me an indication. Till then, I'm not going to touch it. And I feel it's the same with human beings. We can all live together and cohabit without any drama, without much ado, right? This is a plant that is a creeper. It's called giloi. Again, we used a lot of it, its bark, to drink kada and keep our throats hot during the COVID times. But right now, I'm putting it in a way that is more humane. If some of us who are more privileged give a little bit of support and we're able to prop those who are not so privileged, because the gillo is a creeper, it requires another plant to prop itself. But once it does, it grows so beautifully. Right now, it's actually, this is an old picture. It's gone up and it's gone up the champa and all that. And it is very helpful because its bark helps us to make this kada, which is very good for throat infections and for situations like the COVID. Oh, this is me making fancy dishes once in a way and then taking an Insta picture and putting them up for some of the few hundred fans that I have on my status. And I'm not so much on Instagram, but I like the 75 to 100 people who follow me on WhatsApp because it's a cute community that we have created. And then I just realized in the picture there is a little runner there. And this plate is from Marimekko. I believe it's a thing called Sapai Vakiria Collection. And Marimekko is a Finnish brand. On the right side, you will see. And this is from the Weather Collection, where they have created an entire series of cutlery based on phenomena of seasonal change, daily diurnal weather change, and so on. And this was done to inaugurate the coming of summer. And I went all the way to Finland and I bought it. It was super expensive, but I was determined to have a set of these plates because to me it is very, very representative of the natural scape of Finland and Scandinavian countries, which I absolutely love, and also Scandinavian design. And I wanted to bring it back. And this is what we call as life through design. For me, it's not just about eating food because you have to survive. I am very particular about the cutlery. I'm not fanciful. I'm not, I don't waste money unnecessarily buying many dinner sets and all. But I have a very carefully curated small collection. But each of those has a story, each of them has a meaning, and each of them is very carefully put together every night when we have dinner. So for us, dinner is not something where we just feel hungry. We've got to grab a bite and just go about our business in our rooms. We come together. We are just three of us at home, but we come together and we try to celebrate it as a family. And there are some small bottles you will see which are containing money plants. So I just kept them near the plate, but actually they are on my shelf. And they contain the vinegar and olive oil or something that is comes with a particular brand of pizza that my colleagues order in TDV. So I always tell them, you can have the pizza. Please don't, you give me the empty bottle. And I'm so amazed to see in these 2-inch bottles, I have these money plants growing. and they now the collection is growing. Yesterday only I got a few more. I was so happy. I'm hoping to put them all as a series on my window someday. And of course, the money plant I snitched from college. Money plant you're not supposed to buy with money, you're supposed to steal. So I happily, it's growing so wild and so much of it growing on campus that a couple of branches every now and then, and they have now proliferated into a huge money plant garden at home. This is Germany. We were traveling in 2019. Vatsal was also there. We went to the Bauhaus, School of Thought. We looked at a lot of their buildings. So this is one house in a place called Weimar. The other one on the right side is a house which is a part of a row houses in a social housing scheme in Frankfurt. Now, what they had done in the Bauhaus in 1919, which is more than 100 years back, is to make very compact houses and allow for a huge plot of land where people could grow their own vegetables, particularly for winter. And this was because after the war, the rationing of food had created a lot of food issues for people. And housing meant that you had to be able to also, in your own way, grow your own crops. So from there has come to me this idea of partial self-sufficiency. It's something that bonds Mahima and me and many other people, and we're all trying to tell urban populations, especially the well-to-do populations, people who have space and the money to invest. Please grow your own food, use your own resources, whether it is energy, water, food, energy as in electricity. Please generate whatever you can for yourself, so that you allow the resources to be available for those people who cannot currently afford it, because it works in a demand supply mechanism, isn't it? If there is less supply, then the people who can afford always get an upper hand. But the moment we supply for ourselves, we don't depend on the system, then it goes slightly in favor of the supply and it becomes more available to other people. So I call it the selfless or the socialist theory of selfishness or anthropocentricity. I've just written a paper and sent it to a forum in Detroit, and let's see how they respond. This is TDV, this is our workstation, and whatever we live, whatever brand, all of us are brands in our own way. Each of you is a brand. And it's not just about you having a brand or enjoying branded stuff, branded clothes and branded goods. You have to live your brand. And whatever that brand is, as a person, as a human being, as an individual in your own right, you will bring it to the table when you come to TDV. And this is what is going to be the exercise for you when we part ways today. And I'll tell you more about it. But this is the kind of inspiring space that we live in. I'm going to just share a very small poem that I wrote when I was walking on the terrace. So we have a soil portion as well, where there is a big champa tree, and that's where we also grow other vegetables. And I saw this worm and this. So please just read. I'm going to just type two sentences so that I don't speak. I give my mouth a bit of a rest, and you can just read what comes on the screen. So this is how I create narratives, mainly for myself, but then I share it with a few people. And a friend of mine also does that. She's in Bangalore. She's a nursery teacher, and her son is in Holland. And he said, you two aunties, now we're going to collaborate on a book of silly poems for children, but with a mission of getting them to not dismiss things in nature which look ugly, which are repulsive, because somehow they don't have beauty the way we think beauty should be. There is a lot of value that they bring to the world, and they do amazing stuff, and they're magicians actually. Had it not been for earthworms, we would never have compost of organic stuff and creation of the nitrogen cycle. But then we dismiss them as ugly. We even crush them probably if they see them, which is something that we wanted to remove from a very young age. So Deepa, my friend, and me are collaborating on this book for of silly poems. This is Kalancho. It's a small succulent that Vatsal and another colleague, Mudita, had gifted to me way back in 2019 for Diwali. And again, I went on propagating it, and I created so many more babies and kept putting them in plants and then gifting them to others. And I know sometimes when I see this flowering, and I tell Vatsal that, you have no idea how many people you're connected to via the Kalancho. You don't even know each other, but the Kalancho knows that all you people came from this one Kalancho that was gifted to from one human being to another human being. I mean, if Kalanchos could talk, they would be laughing among themselves that, see how many people we have connected. And it's just something that makes me smile and makes Vatsal also smile when I tell him these absurd stories. This is Alistonia scolaris, and it's a tree. It's a beautiful tree. It's also called Saptaparni in Hindi and in maybe regional languages. It used to be gifted to graduating scholars at Shantiniketan by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. So when he gave them the graduating certificate and probably put that shawl around their shoulders, he also gave them the Scholaris leaf. And I guess it was also metaphor for, hey, so many leaflets within this leaf. Please also proliferate and try to do as many things as you can in your life. I suppose that's what must have been why he gave, apart from the direct correlation that the word Scholaris comes in its biological name. These are some of the night flowering plants in my on my terrace garden, and sometimes we take a walk. Now it's a nice weather is nice, and we get the fragrance of it. Hits us when we go after dinner for a short stroll, actually not even a walk. And I always think that, my God, when we are all sleeping, they are awake. When we are chattering away, they are silent because they are sleeping. Do we disturb them in the daytime when we go to the terrace and the whole world is going choo, 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 chapa, 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 chapa? It's so mean, right? And when they are awake and they are talking, it's silent talk because we never get disturbed. So I wonder if it's that way with us. So I think the idea of also time and timelessness is something that Manoj and I talk when we're generally strolling about. Oh, this is my favorite story. This is Zurich, where I studied a part of my architectural course as an exchange student, and that's my hostel room on the top. I lived right in the topmost attic room, and right in front of, and it was on a hill in Zurich, and I could get the view of the whole city of Zurich from the window. And there is a cable car by which you could go down to the city. And this is the cable car station where you step down and enter the cable car. Right in front of my window, there was a kind of a huge villa. It was a very rich part of Zurich. Some rich person had donated his house to the hostel. So, people like us could live in such elite neighborhoods. And a person used to come and sweep the carpet of cherries every morning. And we used to watch from our window, my roommate and me. And I would go and tell the boys who were also on that exchange with me that, look here, every day they're sweeping this. Yeah, we in India, we would have picked them even if they were not ripe, and we would have eaten them. There's no question of them letting them fall and then, sweep. How I wish we could go and pick those and eat. We were always traveling as young students, so you didn't have much money. And we could probably make a meal out of the cherries and save a money on a lunch or something. The Indian in us is so used to picking free fruit. So with great difficulty, we picked up the courage to go and talk to the person who was sweeping, and he said, yeah, you're most welcome to pick the cherries. I am just getting paid. This person lives in America, and he just asked me to come and sweep every day. Do you know, I come from Oerlikon, and it doesn't make sense for me to come all the way. I'm so happy if you want to pick the cherries. I can't bear to pick them every day and take them. It's too much for me. And we said, wow. So every morning we were there before college, going to college, picking cherries from the floor and trying to make a meal out of it. Until one day we got one more bright idea that we told him, whatever you're getting paid, why don't you give us half the money? We'll sweep the cherry orchard. And orchard, what, there were 5 6 trees. He said, oh, that is wonderful, because I spend a lot of my money commuting. And so for what sweeping, it's like, I mean, it's such a dignified thing, because everybody does this work in Switzerland, and you never feel you're doing any menial work. I mean, I don't feel it even in India. But then you pick up a rake and you just do char 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 char, and that's it. And you have a basket of strawberry cherries, and you're also getting paid. I mean, and now when I think back and I tell my son, he said, what, you did these things and you were 20, you were in your 20s. And I say that, hey, the child in you should never grow up. This is Berlin, a city that I always wanted to visit. It was on my wish list, and I visited it in 2019. And it's a signal of hope and optimism, because on the left side is Hitler's bunker. It's a concrete structure where you can see a lot of graffiti on the walls. Of course, now they've built a cafe on the topmost, on the terrace, which is completely in glass. But for me, that solitary tree is a sign of hope. On the right side is a memorial for murdered Jews, designed in the city of Berlin. It has these huge 4 5 6 feet high blocks of concrete, like a graveyard. Then it's not a graveyard, it looks like a graveyard, almost like, a solid. And it's a maze, and you have to go through it, and you get lost. Some places, the space between those blocks, and there are some 3,000 of these on the floor of a huge open site. So if you're going like that in the maze, the only ray of hope is that tree in front. And the maze was created to make people understand what kind of fear the Jews must have lived, with no hope at all. And then you realize, oh my God, but I'm so privileged, because at the end of it, across the road, I know that's the way out, because that is where the tree is. And that's why I call these two slides hope and optimism. This is a student of mine. I mean, student, what, she's married now. She started growing fruits and vegetables on her terrace. And you can see she also looks like that parent, who says, oh, my bacha got 99.74 in the board exam. So proud of the harvest that she has reaped. And she tells me, she's a Maharashtrian. She says, I tell my Baba to cut the vegetables, and it's very ceremonial. We go take pictures on the day that we collect these vegetables. And what a beautiful thing she told me was, you know what, ma'am, earlier when I went to the vegetable vendor, I used to always say, sabse best wale vegetables do. I used to reject the ones that had any kind of a scar or anything. But once I started growing my vegetables, I just fell in love with all of them with their flaws. And so this is what I captioned this slide, is that daag achhe hain. And I think we should accept people with their flaws. Just like vegetables have flaws, for no rhyme or reason. It's not their fault if, some insect came and made a bite and went off. If it's infested is another thing. But do not, ever reject vegetables. Next time, I hope when you go to a vegetable vendor, you are able to pick all of them for what they are, because that's the respectable thing to do. This is David. David is a soil magician. He is a very dear friend of TDV, and he is the soil expert at Araku Coffee Plantation. We have a retail shop of this brand of coffee back home in TDV, and he also works with the urban farms. They have done a project with us, with our students, and he told us about how soil is magic, and that you should never try to replace soil with water or air. So I don't agree with aquaponics, hydroponics, airponics, or whatever ponics. I'm a soil person. I'm totally hooked on the fact that plants need soil. And he showed us a documentary of a microscopic documentary of plants roots giving signal to the microbes in the soil that this is the nutrient we want. Oh, I want magnesium. So the particular bacteria that is magnesium friendly carries it from the soil and gives it to the plant only when the plant asks for it. But when we do hydroponics, we jabardasti put all the nutrients and we force feed the plant. And if a plant is force fed, it's never going to give you happy nutrients. So there is no point in eating palak every day that has been force fed. So I think some of the lessons that David taught us are so profound, so much of common sense, but something that we were not even aware of. And I think that's the lesson from David, that don't assume things, always make it a point to get to know more about things that are not apparent and things that are microscopic. This is a response, an email I got from Suruchi. Suruchi is now currently going to be graduating from the master's program. We had done a similar one for them in 2020. And she wrote me a beautiful email saying, talking about the tree in a park that she saw. It was heart shaped. Pardon? Oh, I thought somebody was asking a question. So she lost a friend who she used to visit with this in this garden, and she told me that, every time I go to this garden, I feel that my friend who's moved on to another life is still with me. And the one that email is one of my most precious, one of the most precious emails that I've ever received in my life. So that's why I shared it. And last but not the least is Mahima. I think she's with us. Mahima did a graduating project in trying to create new communities of urban farming, and she was looking at how food moves from the farm to our stomach, and to see whether we could find better ways of food movement. And this is her final graduating jury, in which she had grown across the semester. She grew a lot of greens to see what it feels like to connect with plants. She also made a whole lot of her classmates grow palak and methi and I don't know what all. It was the winter semester, and she brought it for the jury along with her. And all of us were like so impressed with the dedication. And of course, the project she did was extremely interesting. So, Mahima, if you're there, I would want you to chip in a little bit. I'll stop sharing. And if we do have time, and if you are interested, I will tell you how it all started in my childhood, and how did I come to be where I am? How did I get all these crazy ideas? And how did I convert these ideas into a profession, into a meaningful life in design? So, Mahima, if you're there, can you come on? I will
Hi.
stop sharing. Mahima, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Naima Nagpal, and I am completing my final year as space and interior design student. So, this project for me started with a simple question that if we become what we eat, do we understand what we eat? Are we aware of what we are consuming? Do we know where it is coming from, how it is being grown, and these chemicals and adulterations that are added to your fruit to give it the perfect shape and color? Are you aware of that? So, in this world of adulteration and corruption, who can be trusted to give that food, that good quality of food we might be looking for? And in all of this, I started looking at the idea of this growing our own food. And when this FDP, the final design project came, where we could choose the topic we were most passionate about, I took the chance to understand and design for growing food closer to people. To many, it was a very alien thing that we could grow food on our very own balconies and terraces, and even for full-fledged fruits, from fruits and the vegetables, that it can happen on our balconies or the terraces. So when I was doing this research to experience myself how it is happening, I started with the easy ones, the palaks and methis. So we call them fenugreeks and spinach. And I had just placed a pot at my friend's place where there was good sunlight. So I sometimes I couldn't go there water, so I made my friends water. And in this process, they got so much involved into it that we used to sit and talk about the food we are eating. And when I was researching, I could see that there's also a community that was happening around me, where people were also started to, get more aware about what is getting in their plates and what they are consuming. And best way to know that you are doing a project where you're getting so involved is to see that, or to experience where you will start dreaming about it. So one of my friend who was watering the plants, he started getting dreams that he has forgotten it and the plant has died and I'm failing this project only. So this is also, we can see how people were very involved in this thing. And the very exciting experience was, it is very different from the usual gardening also, because in these 30 or 40 days, you can actually eat the fruit of the labor you are doing. And you can see every day, you can see the plant visibly grow. So aside from this thing, when I actually stepped out to research, to know people who are working in the same thing, I realized that it is not just me, but there are many people, many organizations who are trying to develop and experiment the ways in which we can try to have farms over on our terraces, do understand that urban setting, and in response to the climate we have here, how we can grow food closer to people, give people the better quality of food, and how we can also be partial self-sufficient in this process. So in all of this, now that I look back at my journey, I see that it all started with that small question. And now I am connected to this big community of architects, the designers, policymakers, many finance or engineers also, who I strongly resonate with, and we are all working on projects with the same intent. So I just want to say that design is not about pen, paper, and beautiful sketches. It can be a way of thinking. It can also be a way of creating communities, creating an impact. And when you guys all come in August, come with an open mind, question the things, discover your own definition of design. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahima. That was so spoken so much from the heart. And yeah, we shared a beautiful journey in that few months. There are so many booklets that she gave me. We read so many articles together. We grew food together. And her parting gift to me was, please go beyond methi for God's sake. I said, yes, yes, I know, I know. So we are graduated to onions now, and hopefully some summer vegetables are in the piping. Thank you so much, Mahima. So maybe I think it's 4:30. I just want to know from the participants if they would like me to share how my childhood influenced the way I reached where I am. Otherwise, I'm happy to conclude this session. Would somebody just
Yes, ma'am, sure.
pardon?
Yes, ma'am, sure. We would love to.
Yeah, sure you're not bored?
No, ma'am.
Pakka. Okay. I go back to my so I will, yes. Oh, sorry. So this is where it all began. So my father worked for a Scottish company, and he lived in Edinburgh. And we grew up in Gujarat, of course, in a most picturesque location. And very early on, it is because of Lego that somehow I realized that space making was my calling in life. Although, of course, I could never articulate it as architecture. However, apart from this, the idea of space being very liberating came from the place where I grew up. It was a small, what do I say? It's a chemical industry in South Gujarat, very close to Mumbai, between Surat and Mumbai. And this is taken from a hill that we used to just run up to. It's a hillock actually, and that's the factory. You can see the river by the side of it, and this was just about a kilometer and a half, 2 kilometers away from the Arabian Sea. So it's a coastal area. So there was, of course, there was a river, there was the hill, there were forests, there was a lake. We would do boating. We would, So I lived my childhood imagining Secret Seven and Famous Five every day. And these roads were all carved out from the forest. And so from my childhood, I always felt that, hey, we are supposed to build within the environment, not that the environment is supposed to find itself within our built environment. And somehow I think that has remained with me. Every time I get a site, the first thing I do is I set up a nursery for saplings so that we don't have to spend money. And I imagine how would the site be without the building. And then somehow I place the building, and then we take it forward. Of course, we've had situations where we've not always been able to convince the client, but then in many cases we also managed to. That was the childhood house that I grew up in. It was built in stone, and it was huge. It had sloping roofs, And this manicured little garden dissipated into the forest just below at the foothills of that hillock that you saw. So if I just went behind my house for a couple of 100 meters, I could start climbing that hill. And obviously, there was this very, what do you say? There is a no zone between where the wild animals would come and where the human beings would go. Sometimes, as naughty as we would try to invade into there, and then we would learn our lesson and we would come running back. Similarly, they would come and then they would retreat. So it was a very, very nice, situation where we kept our distance, but we almost watched each other. Of course, we didn't have tigers or stuff, but we grew up with insects, arthropods, and a lot of snakes, a lot of snails and leeches and all of those. And we had a Mali Bhaiya who used to come and help in maintaining the garden because my mom had a rock garden and she had all kinds of segments to the garden. And he used to always tell us that don't be afraid of snakes. He used to tell us how to identify the rattlesnake from that snake, from python and all. He used to tell us harmless. They won't eat you. Don't worry. Don't imagine this anaconda business. Only you have to run when you see the king cobra, which is black, and that's it. You would just run. Otherwise, what he would do is he would just tap his foot on the ground, shoo, and the snake would just slither into its environment. And at night, I remember my parents used to tell us, do not step out of the house at night. But my brother and me, we would have to relive the famous five and the secret seven at night also. So very smartly, we carrying torches, and we would sneak out into the garden. So even now, I remember that I can read an environment with my eyes closed because I'm so used to the buzzing sounds of the crickets and the insects and the noises that happen at night because it's pitch dark. And what flashlight will we have? A tiny little, some pocket flashlight that you would have bought as a keychain or something. And you're just carrying that down and you're imagining some mysterious world. Oh, it was fantastic. So we could climb on the garage from the mango tree at the back. And my father had put a machan on that mango tree. So we pretty much lived there only. I mean, homework wahi hota tha. We'd come back from school, just dump our bags and go up, and then lunch my mother would bring there. And they never told us to come inside the house. They just let us loose. So like vagabonds, we would like be running around, playing in the mud, doing all kinds of building mud vessels and building little huts in mud and straw and leaf and pretending the leaves was some food and crazy things we have done, I think. But that mango tree was really, really our home for a very long time. That's my mom also, introducing us to snakes and telling us, look at the snake from close. It has such beautiful skin, and look at your skin. It's so ugly. There's nothing on your skin. Look at the patterns it has. And she would just, romanticize and take away that fear factor first. Secondly, because they were scientists, they were always very empirical. So everything and anything would go under the microscope. And one of the gifts that we had was a microscope, a fairly good microscope. So other than the onion peel, which you learn to do in school, no, in biology laboratory, we had put everything under the microscope. And if we found the dead skin of this snake, she would tell us why it sheds the skin and all that story. And then she would tell us, put it in the microscope and see what it looks like. And then tell us to draw it. And so I remember making these little diagrams as I had no idea I'm going to become an architect and design environments. And that's the mango tree from where, I mean, it's not the same mango tree, but we would pretend that we were detectives spying on the world and all that. And who were we spying at? Our own house. There was nobody for miles around. Our nearest neighbor was quite far away. But we lived in this beautiful make-believe. And we also watched the mango tree go through seasonal changes. So, the flowering season in early March, April, it was a langda, and my father got it from Bengal. So they were also horticulturists, but they were also very poetic. So we grew up with this idea of, understanding rationality on one hand and also understanding beauty that didn't have any explanation. It is beautiful because it is. That's it. Just enjoy it and move on. Don't have to rationalize everything. But on another day, she would also tell me what is reticulate venation, what is parallel venation, blah blah. And I think they were all woven as stories. They were never like lessons from a biology textbook. So I think this mango tree is very dear to us. And I say that this is how my worldview got formed. This is an insect called, I mean, it's not an insect. I don't know. I think it's an arthropod maybe called millipede. It has 40 pairs of legs. There's a centipede, which is very dangerous. So we were told centipedes se dur rehna, millipede is very cute. And we used to like to collect these millipedes. I mean, collect means hold them in our hand and then let them go over the arm and use a statue. So the person who is able to, because it tickles, as it walks. And it was so difficult to play this game because you couldn't chase the millipede. It walks so fast. And then we would go to mom and say, can you please teach us how to catch the millipede? And she would say, don't even try it. It's got 40 pairs of legs. You jokers, you got only one pair of legs. You think you can outrun an insect, a species that has got 40 pairs of legs. So till we grew up, we always used to look at the millipede here, 40 pairs of legs. How wonderful, yaar, kash we had 4 more pairs of legs. But only much later did we realize that that one pair of legs can crush the 40 pairs and many of these 40 pairs of legs. And I think that is why I cannot imagine ever crushing a millipede or any insect that I would see, because it is something I can do. And so usually even when we find ants and all, we just sweep them and we go leave them. Whenever possible, we leave them out somewhere and come. And we value the fact that they also have a right to live. And because we had this microscope at home, we knew how to appreciate the detail. God is in the detail, the little beautiful complexities that were there in the cellularity of things that we put under the microscope. And at the same time, also appreciate that the big picture, that something is connected to something and something. And it's something that I've carried again to the day in my life, is to always design keeping in mind the detail and keeping in mind the implications of the other living species on the environment, on human communities. And even in the office, it's my strength to design for the big picture. I like to imagine the impact on a larger scale. Whereas my husband is extremely patient with detailing. He can sit on the railing of one staircase, the design of one railing pattern for 3 weeks. For him, it's a piece of art and sculpture. And because he respects cellularity, I respect it. I don't have the patience to design, but I also know where he comes from. And together, we are able to address both ends of the spectrum in the practice. And I've also begun to, as a student in architecture school, begun to understand that, trees are like walls. Why should we make walls of concrete? If I plant a series of Ashoka, I get almost a wall. If the job of the wall is almost like a boundary wall, then I don't need to put up an ugly concrete wall. I can do it with a beautiful series of Ashokas that give me the privacy. So I always look at trees as wall planes or roof planes because they have a canopy and they are like a roof. Or sometimes if I look at creepers again as walls, or if you put them on a pergola as roof, or as herbs, which are like grass, or small plants, which are like a carpet, which feels like a floor plane. We also look at a lot of natural rhythms when we are designing. We look at which which tree is flowering, which is non-flowering, which one flowers in summer, which one in winter. And when we design landscape, we keep in mind that at any point in time, there should be color in the garden. If I would plant all of them, which happen to flower in winter, they would all look pretty in winter. But in summer, it would be kind of bereft of any color. So I think a lot of this understanding came from observing trees, observing their rhythms, observing seasonal patterns, and so on. And again, a lot of it was multisensorial. It's not always about seeing something and imagining that that's all there is to it. Yes, we live in a very visually obsessed world, but it's a lot about fragrance, it's a lot about textures, it's a lot about the touch and feel, the tactility. And there are many plants that also actually produce very beautiful sounds, whistling sounds, and they are extremely happy to hear sounds. And I think we should look at ideas in design from a multisensorial perspective. These are some of the fruits that used to grow in our garden. Now, I want to know if any of you can identify these fruits. Of course, forget let's go to the mango one. Do you know what are the varieties of the mango? Start from the top right. Anybody, any idea from the shape? Alfonso, the king. And in Valsad, where I grew up, that's the name of the nearest city. It's the Alfonso belt. So we grew up with Alfonsos, but of course we didn't have an Alfonso in our garden. What about the one next to that on the top? It's the one that if these vendors on the roadside, they will cut it like that and they make these cuts and put masala and give. And it's not very khatta. It's not very sour. It's called totapuri because it has the nose like a tota. Okay. What about the one which is green in color at the top, bottom left corner? Anybody from Bengal here should be able to identify.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Kacha
Huh?
It's the raw mango, kacha aam.
Yeah, it's actually not raw. It's the ripe one. It's deceptive. It's green like that. It's the langda. Langda is a variety from Bengal. And on
Yes,
our
ma'am.
street, we used to grow something like 300, 320, 325 fruits every year and on an average. And my brother and I used to hate the langda because we used to find it very fibrous. And now we crave for the langda. It is so sweet. It's absurdly sweet. It can put the Alfonso to shame. But we were elite, we grew up in the Alfonso belt and we treated the langda like a poor country cousin. And now we regret it because my parents used to just take it to Bombay and then send it to Chennai and here and there to relatives. And we never ate. I mean, they ate, of course. And on the bottom next to that is the one that you make pickles from. It's called Rajapuri. It is extremely sour and it's a very hard. You literally need a knife to go chop, 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 like you chop chicken. That's why it's used for pickles. Can you identify any of the fruits in the pictures on the other side?
Guava,
Yes,
custard apple,
fantastic.
jamun, lychee,
Yeah. Black jamun,
star
yes.
fruit,
Lychee. Which one?
star fruit, the last one.
Yes, star fruit, fantastic.
Tamarind.
Tamarind.
That is yes, it's a wild tamarind. It's actually looks. It's not the tamarind we use, which is khatta. It's a white one, and you remove the peel. It's like a snake kind of a spiral, and you can eat a white. It's very pungent, and it's got a black seed like the tamarind, but it doesn't. It's not khatta at all. It's almost bitter, and it grows on a kikar looking tree, and it's very jungly. But oh my God, we used to really forage the neighborhood. What else? What about the one next to the mango bottom one? It's bear.
Beer,
Bear hai, yes.
green,
Or
green
either
jamun,
huh?
green jamun.
The one on top, no? It's actually white
Yes,
jamun. It's only available in that belt between
Gujarat.
yeah, in South Gujarat, and it's jambu, we call it. Oh, it's just water, and it's such a sweet, amazing. Oh God, I go to Gujarat, I just bring lots of it and keep it in the fridge for as long as it is edible. What about the one below the jamun? We used to throw stones and pick and eat. It's the badam, it's
Maybe
the white, the actual original badam. If you peel it and you remove the pulp, is where the inside is that little hard thing. You take a stone and whack it, and that's when you get the little badam. It's some wild variety of badam, but the flesh is also edible. It's purple in color and it's extremely bitter, but hey, who cared? We just got free fruit, and we also knew how to pluck, throw stones. We had a little sickle attached to a long stick, and we were taught how to pluck fruit that was ready to be eaten. And pomegranates also we had. Oh, what a fantastic childhood. This is a slide which says that as a designer, I take a position with respect to landscape. Should I allow the man-made environment to dominate? Should I allow the natural environment to dominate? Or can they both coexist in a way that they complement each other? So at the moment, the kind of architecture I do is in that middle way. I don't, because in urban situations, you cannot always submerge it inside a forest, even if you wanted to. So at least you make sure that they are on equal footing and they are done, they correlate in such a way that they add beauty and value to each other. My last segment is really my love affair with a tree called the champa. And this is School of Architecture where I studied architecture for 6 long years. And it's a basement, what you see, because the entire classrooms building is lifted on a stilt. And that used to be our amphitheater. If you just went through the amphitheater, on the other side, which you see is a hillock and there is a champa tree. So Professor Piraji Sagra, who used to teach us drawing and painting, on Tuesdays and Wednesday afternoon would make us sit there and sketch the champa tree for 1 year. 1 year, all we're doing is sketching the champa tree. And that's when I sort of fell in love with it. It was not love at first sight, but it was a love that is slow, but is there for a lifetime. And we watched it, turn from green, fully covered in leaves in July when we joined architecture, to becoming barren in winter, and then again sprouting new leaves. And I absolutely kept in touch with the champa, and I brought this little sapling in 1999, and I call it my second born, because it has been with me now for what, 20, nearly 25 years. And now it is this big. It's even bigger than this, because this is a picture taken 3 years back. It's a 14, 15-foot high tree, which is sitting on a terrace, in a terrace garden. And it's the place where I go and spend a few minutes, if especially if I had a fight with somebody, or I've had a bad day, and I just blurt out. I will yell, I will do whatever, and I call it my pitara. It's unconditional. Poor thing, it listens to me, and it calms me down. But in 2019, there was a horrible, horrible hailstorm. 2020, I think, yeah. And before I could save some of the younger, plants that were in pots, the champa was completely damaged. You can see it. I mean, the hail had torn through the leaves, and I remember crying my heart out that after so many years, my champa has given up. But you know what? After a couple of months, it was back in this way, beautiful as ever. And therefore, the quality that I believe the tree and me share is resilience. I'm a very resilient person. I don't easily get bogged down by obstacles. And when I cross the obstacles, I somehow come out a stronger person. All the ups and downs in life we have navigated with a lot of resilience. And I feel that this is what is common. But there are so many more things that are common. These are all the things that are common. And my husband always tells me, okay, all that is fine, all that metaphor is fine. But you know what? Both of you are like, you look healthy. You look, I mean, he won't tell me I look fat. Because he knows how much I hate body shaming. He will just say, hey, both of you look prisht, all kind of round and very, very robust. And I'm okay with it. I think it's a very cute quality, and I'm happy that the champa and I share it. But again, in winters, this is how it looks. And even though it's so barren, it's so beautiful. I mean, it almost looks like a sculpture. And I personally believe that all of us, when our chips are down, when we've had a bad day, we've not been able to comb our hair or wear the clothes we want to, if we can still manage to look beautiful, because there is beauty that lies from within us, I think we've reached somewhere in life. I love its branches. I love the leaves. I love the plant, the flowers, the buds. And this is how I use, although this is not my design, it's a design of a very dear friend of mine in Bangalore called Chitra Vishwanath. She's an environmental architect. And we always try to plant champa. And somehow the champa is like, the one who generates space around it and starts engaging people, starts a conversation and engages people in a conversation, and suddenly then slips into oblivion, and then allows the people to take the conversation forward. So it is, I think this is my last slide. Yeah, and this is a beautiful retreat that TDV is very, very deeply associated with. We visit many times a year, do workshops, our students go on internship. And this is a very nice culture on the way from where we stay to the place where the workshops are. And actually, if you see, it's all these trees. I went in winter, but then this person, Nikolai, has made a very beautiful sculpture. And then I found these two parts that are going into it. And Robert Frost is my favorite poet, and this is my favorite poem. So I thought I will lead you with this message that I always took the path less traveled by, and that has made all the difference in my life. And I'm very happy where I am. I know what a struggle it has been to reach where I am, and I'm at peace with myself. But I'm not done yet. I have a lot more to come. And I think there is so much beauty in this world. This is one of my favorite books called The Fox, the Mole, the Horse, and the Rabbit. And good, it's a long book, a long title. Charles Mackenzie's very, very beautiful book, a hand illustrated book. And this is a page from that book. And there is, that's how I'd like to end, that there is so much beauty that we need to look after. And thank you so much for patiently listening to me for almost an hour and a half. Yeah, I am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for such a wonderful session today. I guess many of us would be able to have a new connection with plants after this session. Students, if you have any queries, I would request if you could just raise your hand and ask ma'am if you have any questions, any doubts. You want to share
Anything you
anything
want to
with
share
ma'am?
either.
Yeah.
It need not be a question or a doubt. It can just be something you want to share.
I had an inquiry. So basically you do architecture in space. So how do you evaluate your space? Like what should come? Like does it come naturally to you, or like you plan it out, like scale everything and then?
That's a good question. I think it's a mixture of both. The more important thing is, where do you start? And because of the school of thought that we came from School of Architecture, Ahmedabad, we always start with the madness. We start with the poetics. We imagine if we had no budget, no deadlines, nothing to worry about, what is the craziest thing we would have done? And that is intuition. But then you can't do fanciful things. But then you put all those fanciful things through the reality checks. You say, okay, now, and you start filtering them. And even if a lot of it gets diluted, some amount of the madness still remains. So I probably start with the wild ideas, the sketches, and make models. And even when I'm imagining a garden, I just do the craziest thing possible. And then I look at, oh, but I have only this much space. I don't have sunlight. Oh, hey, there are 4 people in this house. They need 2 bedrooms. They need 4 car parking. These are all the kind of reality checks one puts through. But at the end of the day, if I'm able to give Dadaji a small little corner where this beautiful light comes in and Dadaji sits on the rocking chair, reads the newspaper every morning, watches the next generation go about their, the rigor of the day, I think it's just satisfying to have given that, because usually clients don't ask us for these kind of things. They typically ask us for conveniences and facilities. I want a walk-in closet. I want 2 bedrooms, one with attached. These are facilities. It is our job to convert facilities into experiences and give the client what even they did not imagine they wanted. So when you give them more than what they asked for, they are with you for life.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Yes.
more questions?
Was it helpful to you, all of you? I mean, I hope. Was the session of
ma'am.
any help to you?
Yes, ma'am, most definitely.
I think it was pretty interesting because like you talked about GMO, like genetically modified. One person talked, I think your prior student talked about that crop, like when fruits are genetically modified. Like I think people do talk about it, but like subconsciously we end up buying like pretty fruits. So I think that's something which I would consider often. But yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have to make small beginnings, and over a period of time, you do what you can in your circumstance, at your pace. But always believe that every small step is going to help the world make it a better place to live. Cool. Okay.
Thank
I
you,
guess,
Lena, ma'am.
Melinda, we could end the session then.
Ma'am, before we end the session, I would just request Barcelona to please turn on your video. So we have the winner of the first session, Barcelona, with us. Barcelona, congratulations. You are the winner of the sound activity that we did in the first session. And
Thank you,
we
ma'am.
will send you your hamper soon to your house, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hi,
And
Barsi. We met for the interview, right?
Yes, ma'am. We did.
So good to have you and to see you already making news at TDV. Very, very happy to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the activity for you from my end is very simple. Just share a story of your tree and me. That's it. Any tree that you already had a connection with or began to now develop a connection would be fantastic. It's not a difficult exercise. It's just something that uh, should engage you in happy moments.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay,
Okay.
everyone. So I hope you all have noted what is the activity that you have got. So we'll define the time frame as 3 days. Okay, we would request your entries at Lena ma'am's email ID, or I'll share you my email ID. Okay, quickly. So you can send in the entries, and we'll announce the winners in the next upcoming session. And we have quickly sent you a link for your feedback that will help us to, arrange more sessions with your feedbacks and everything. So please give us the feedback. And thank you, Lena ma'am, for reliving your childhood, your young adulthood age, and your amazing life with us through plants, through your stories, and the lovely connections that you have with the nature. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everyone. Enjoy your life and enjoy the idea of life through design that is coming your way very soon.
You too, ma'am. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.